Hello and welcome back to the channel. In my last video, I talked about some solutions that I wanted to put out here on this channel. Okay. Right now, a lot of people are finding themselves in a bind, not knowing where they're going to be from 6 months from now in terms of where they're going to live, because they're in a situation to where they may be losing their place. They may even be losing their place of employment, but more importantly, their place to lay their head, right? Now, those of you who are not in this situation and something like this doesn't appeal to you, please watch this video too. You can take a look at this as well, because you can pass the information along to someone else who may be in need of a place to stay, okay? Now, check this out, family. Whether it's a single man, a single woman, a young couple with no children, an older couple with children that may have moved out, empty nesters, or a family where it's just a mother and a few children, or a husband and a wife and a few children, whatever the situation may be, this information could be passed along to someone like that who finds themselves in a situation where they don't know where they are going to be, because the economy is just whack right now. The economy is very uncertain and people are afraid. And so from time to time, I do put out solution-based videos. Now, many of you may look at tiny home videos and you may get discouraged because people get to throwing out those prices and you say, well, I can't afford that. I'll just buy a regular house rather than to pay that. And now you have to understand that for some of these people, this is a fad. Not all of them, because some of them are like, hey, this is my lifestyle. This is me right now. This is what I'm going to be doing, right? But for some of these people, they're just jumping into it because they're like, okay, I got the extra money. I'm going to make one as big and bad as I possibly can, right? But for those who are practical, I have seen very practical, affordable, low-cost, tiny home builds that are solving a very major problem for families. So that's what I'm doing this video for. I wanted to start. The reason why I put tiny homes and RV conversions is because some people are actually converting an RV into a tiny home. So let me tell you what's going on with that. Let me tell you why that may be a good option for a lot of people, because right now the market, I would say, is littered with older RVs that may be in the 1980s or 70s. I'm sorry, not 70s, but 90s. And quite possibly in the 70s, because I do see some old Airstreams that are, being sold real cheap. But get this. Most of the images you see on the screen here, these are tiny home builds from scratch. I can assure you that, right? Some of them may use repurposed materials, and some of them, it looks like I see at least one or two that may be, or one that I know for sure, that may be a cabin that was pre-built and sold as a shell to the individual buyer, right? But there are actual RV conversions. And there's a difference in an RV and a tiny home. There's a lot of cheap stuff going on in some RVs, but many have turned them into permanent structures, permanent tiny homes. They've even changed the exterior so that it doesn't have that RV look, and they may put some type of vinyl siding or some type of wood siding on it to give it a more classic cabin-y look. And on the inside, they change out the cabinets. They do other things to give it a more homey feel. They upgrade the flooring and the sinks and countertops and things of that nature so that it is a more up-to-date looking tiny home versus just cookie cutter type RVs. I've seen a number of individuals who do RV conversions. Some people are even taking school buses, right? They call them schoolies, and they turn them into homes. As a matter of fact, I may want to do a separate video on that, because that's a whole other project, right? Because with an RV, you're already dealing with certain components like the electrical and the plumbing, and sometimes the air and the just various other things. The bathroom unit's already in there, and the tub or shower. Whereas with a schoolie or a school bus, you have to add those things, right? So maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But the reason why I think this is a great thing to consider for a lot of people, because with an RV, you might literally be able to drop $1,500 down it might be an old beat up RV, but guess what? Just like with anything, if you're going to get it that cheap, you get what you pay for. But the end goal is what you are after. If all of the components work, the electrical, the plumbing, the air, the heat, and all that kind of stuff, right? All you're going to be doing is upgrading. Treat it like it's a shell, okay? You can upgrade the insulation. You can upgrade the windows if you want, the doors, the flooring. You can rip out some of the older components and put your own components in there and make it more of a 4-season living situation versus a 2 or 3 season, or should I say a 3-season living situation. I saw one older couple. This older couple, they actually insulated it so well to where they say they barely need the heat in the winter and they barely need the air in the summer. That's how well they insulated it. And many times they'll get a very small mini or micro wood burning stove as the heating, so that in the wintertime you don't have to deal with fuel or anything like that, but a few logs just to keep the place nice and warm and toasty during the winter season. Now let me tell you the other benefit of having a situation like this, right? You don't have to own land. If you are in a situation where your income is very minimal, there are literally places where you can rent a space or a hookup for water and electricity, depending on where you are, what state, what city, whatever. You might be able to get something $100-something a month just to park your place, your RV or your tiny home. Of course, that price can go up depending on where you are, anywhere from $100 to a few $100s a month. And some people even have weekly rental rates. I'm saying this because, again, if you find yourself in a tough situation to where you no longer have a place to stay, it's time to start thinking out of the box. It's time to start thinking of other ways to survive, but you got to think ahead, okay? Think ahead. Don't wait until your situation is so dire to where you are literally on the streets. But consider this for a moment. Consider being able to get yourself an older RV. If you can afford something newer and nicer, that is fine as well. But if you cannot, there are literally deals, especially if you're a single man or a single woman, or just a couple with no children, or a couple with 1 or 2 children. You can find a situation to where you only have to put minimal amount of money into it, and you can repair as you go. Now, here's the other thing. You might have a family member who say, no, I'm sorry, you can't stay with me. I'm sorry, I don't have the space. I'm sorry, I can't do it, right? But that same family member may say, if you ask them, well, is it possible I can park my RV on your property and live out of my own structure and just pay you a little bit of money or help you out around the house with some things, or around the yard, or around the land? Now that family member may say, you know what? I think I can do that. I can do that. Can't let you stay with me, but if you have your own RV or your own tiny home, I can do that. Of course, you want to make sure with whatever area you go to that is permissible. A lot of areas are starting to allow the secondary dwelling for in-laws or visitors or guest house or whatever. So a lot of areas are starting to allow that, whereas they may not have before. And so that being said, that may be a great alternative, even if you feel like, well, man, I might have to call on somebody one day to stay with them. So this is a better alternative. You don't have to stay with them. You can stay in your own structure and just work out something with utilities or whatever, as far as being able to plug in and have access to water and things of that nature. And you would be surprised. Many people would accept that situation. As a matter of fact, I watch a lot of tiny home videos, and I've seen just that. I've seen where people will even allow strangers. They'll say, look, you can park your property, your trailer here, or your RV here, or your tiny home here, and this is what I charge for rent. In some cases, they allow them to work on their land or their farm or whatever, just to be able to park there. And it depends on who you're dealing with as to the arrangements that they will accept. But this to me is a great alternative for those who have a big question mark hanging over their head as to where they're going to be, because of so many things that are happening and so many things that have changed in this world. It's definitely time right now to start considering these things, because the world that we live in is different, right? And of course, I've talked in previous videos before about the whole idea of being able to find a small lot, a half acre, 1 acre, 2 acres, and getting you a structure put there. Now, of course, every area is different. You would have to find out in terms of the area that you're trying to go to before you try to buy some land. It's okay to go ahead and buy that RV and just park it somewhere until you find your own land. So you can do this thing in baby steps, you know. What you can do, get yourself an RV, fix it up, do what you can a little at a time as you can afford it. Put a little bit of money here and there, and park it somewhere where the rent is affordable for you. And when you're ready for your own land, before you jump out and buy that land, make sure you go to the city or the township or the region that you're trying to go into. Make sure that it is permissible for you to put a tiny home or an RV conversion on there, or a cabin, or whatever it is you're trying to do. Make sure that it is permissible before purchasing the land. And you might be just good to go, getting the whole load off. As a matter of fact, when I listen to a lot of these families who take this step, many of them say they couldn't afford to buy a house, or they were paying way too much to rent an apartment or a town home or a condo or a house. They say the rent was just too much. And so when they opted to do this, they found themselves in a better situation financially. Now, one thing you got to cut through is that layer of stubbornness. I remember I asked someone very close to me, I don't know if they'll see this video, but I remember expressing my disapproval of their quick, rapid response on something so simple as a solution like this. Now, they don't own a place or anything like that, and they're just kind of living from place to place. I mean, this is the situation they are in, right? And I said, could you live in something like this? And they say, no, that's too small. No, that's too small. And I said to myself, have you even taken the time to look at some of them? Have you even listened to some of them? Some of the videos, that I've shown you? And looked at the various sizes. I mean, they don't all have to be tiny, tiny. There are some that are literally very, very spacious. Very spacious. As a matter of fact, I'm going to direct my viewing audience to one of my favorites. Just give me a moment here, and I'm just going to look her up real quick. All right. Now her home, she calls herself Miss Gypsy Soul. Miss Gypsy Soul. Now she's been featured on a number of tiny house shows, right? Tiny House Expedition. She's been featured on Tiny Revolution. Miss Gypsy Soul. She has her own channel as well. And let me just type this up here. And I'm looking on YouTube, y'all. Okay? I'm looking on YouTube. She's been featured on Miss Bohemian Soul. As a matter of fact, that might be her channel. I'm not sure. But I know they're showing her structure there. But anyway, if you type up Miss Gypsy Soul, this is a sister, a black woman, who she did the thing, okay? She jumped out there, she got herself a tiny home, and her home is absolutely beautiful. It is one of my favorites. I've seen so many that are my favorites, but hers, I think, is a good place to start in terms of just showing how versatile something like this can be. It doesn't have to be a situation where you're living in like a soapbox or something where you feel like you can't move around. It doesn't have to be like that. Every situation is different. But anyway, my biggest concern is not all of that. My biggest concern is encouraging you to check into something or to look into something that might be a workable solution for a situation that may come in the future to where you might find yourself homeless. This can prevent that. And again, tiny homes can be very affordable. And you don't have to start off with a fresh build. You can start off with a RV conversion. Many are using that as an option. So I hope that I have said something in this video to nudge you a little bit and to encourage you in this direction. For those of you who may consider something like this, please go to YouTube and just look up tiny homes, tiny houses, RV conversions, just all kinds of different things you can look up, and you will see some great and wonderful ideas. You'll see varying amounts that people have paid to do this, various styles. Some people are very, very elaborate with what they do. Some people go on the very cheap end because they're just trying to survive. One guy, his name is, what is his name? I can't think of his name, but he literally has a 10 by 10. What is his name? Let me try to see if I can remember. His name is, okay, Tiny Home Ron. Let me see if I'll pull it up like that. Ron. Well, anyway, you may run across him in your search if this is something that you're looking to do. I can't think of his name, but he literally has a very, very small place, and it's just him. And so he wasn't really caring about the size. His biggest concern was a place to lay his head, right? Now, if you're not just looking for a place to lay your head, but you want something really nice, these videos will really encourage you on the steps needed to get the ball rolling. And there are places that offer financing for tiny homes. So there's a lot of research that you can do on your own side. I just wanted to put this information out there to encourage those of you who are thinking of venturing in this direction. But I'm done with this video. So please be encouraged to go investigate. Please be encouraged. And if it's not for you, share the information with someone else, because people are facing some very tough situations, and this just might be a workable solution. All right. Hope I've said something that will encourage you, but until next time. We hope you liked today's topic. Please leave your comments below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, share it like this video, and with that, we're out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.